Hello, so today we are going to explore 13 different watercolor techniques. So we're just going to start by having our little worksheet. I usually print it on watercolor paper. We're going to make sure we have a watercolor palette or even just a color of watercolor. If you want to use one single color, we're going to have water, paint, and we're going to get started. So we're going to start with our first technique, which is called a solid wash. So we are going to start by loading our brush with water and paint and then paint across that section in a smooth um, way. We want our color to still be transparent. We don't want it to be a thick layer of watercolor that is not transparent anymore. And we want to create a solid, even layer of color. So as you can see, I'm just making sure my colors spread nicely around, and I am trying to make it even. The second technique we're going to be playing with is called wet on wet. So the first thing we're going to do is clean our brush, and then we're going to start to put a clean layer of water into our little box, and then we're going to start dropping in some of the paint. We're going to see how the paint spreads, how it blends softly. We're going to maybe play around with a couple of colors. You can just drop a little color, move it around, and you can play around with this area a little bit. So as you can see, I'm just moving the paint around a little bit just to see how it blends within that water section. This is great for skies, backgrounds, and just to play with how colors blend. The next technique we're going to learn about is going to be the dry on dry. So I'm just wetting a little bit my paint just so I can be sure that I can grab it. And then I'm going to grab a drier brush and use it on dry paper. So this will create some rough, more textured lines instead of the smooth ones that we were able to create earlier. And I'm using another brush just to kind of show you how dry my brush is. These are not smooth lines. The next technique we're going to be working on is going to be the blotting, also known as lifting. So blotting is when you basically lift the color away. So we're just going to start with a solid wash all around, and then we're going to be using a tissue or a paper towel onto that wet paint to lift our color away. So this will create lighter areas or even cloud-like texture. So we can use it in the sky areas, and as you can see, areas are lighter. Next one is going to be our salt technique. So we still start with a solid wash, and then we will sprinkle salt onto our wet paint. As it dries, we'll see that it will start absorbing the pigment of the color and creating crystal-like dry texture. So once it's dry, we will brush it away, move the salt away, and you will see the texture that it will create. Next technique we're going to be working on is going to be a wax resist. So I'm just going to use a pastel, or you can use whatever wax kind of thing you have. I'm using a white simple pastel, and we are just going to start drawing on our little section. You can draw whatever you want. This is just to show you that the paint is not going to stick to those areas. So we're going to do a little drawing, and then now we will start watering our paint, getting it ready, and passing it over that area. And you will see that my stars start popping through that paint. So our color, our pigment is not going to stick to that area. Our next one is going to be the splatter one. So basically what we're going to do is make our watercolor very wet, and then we're going to either flicker or tap our brush so the paint sprays onto the paper. This will create random dots. It's great for stars, snow, different kinds of texture. And I'm just playing around with different colors so you can see it a little bit better in this little piece of paper. It will also kind of like not very much like to stay in the area that we want to use. So you'll see that it will start spraying around as well. Next technique we're going to be working with is going to be this Sgraffito. So we're just going to start by creating another solid wash in our little section, and then what we're going to do is, while the paint is still wet, we're going to scratch into this area with a tool that is able to scratch. So usually I use an X-Acto knife to be very precise, but you can use a toothpick, other kind of tools as well. So as we draw, you will see that the water, well, the pigment of the color will make those areas slightly darker. Next one we're going to be working with is the water drops. So we are basically going to start with another solid wash once again. We're going to try to keep it nice and blended. And we are going to then drop clean water onto that painted area. The water will push the pigment to the sides and will make lighter spots called blooms. For the negative space, I'm just going to start with a super quick wash, and then we will get back to that one just because I want my my painting to have a yellow backdrop. So just start with a quick wash and then we'll go back to it. Next up, we will have our plastic wrap. So another solid wash that we will start with, keeping it nice and wet and transparent. And then we will basically press plastic wrap onto that wet paint, scrunch it up a little bit, let it dry. I usually put a little piece of tape just to make sure it stays in position. And we will let it dry. And once it's dry, we will peel it off and it will leave a cool crack texture. And I will show you as soon as everything is dried up. Next up, we'll have our masking tape. So we will start by grabbing a little piece of masking tape. We will place it in the area we want to not have color. And then we'll grab our brush, create a wash. And once it's dry and we'll peel it away, it will leave clean, sharp edges underneath. And lastly, we will start creating our gradient, which is when color fades from dark to light very smoothly, or it even blends into another color. So we will basically start to use more water the farther we go down. So the more faded we want it, the more light, the more water we will add. So as you can see, we'll take our time with this one. We will keep adding a little bit more color and we'll slightly fade it down. With this one, try to create a nice, clean, smooth transition and keep adding more pigment to the darker area if needed. Once our negative painting area is dry, we will start working on that one. So a negative painting is instead of painting inside of a shape, you paint around it. So this is called negative space. It helps our subject stand out. So I will basically start by working on my background and then I will create my shape. So in this case, it's a heart, and I will add more color around it to make my little yellow heart pop more. So this is going to basically not be directly painted on, but we are still gonna see our yellow heart. So you can keep adding layers and layers and layers. I usually start with a lighter layer of color, so like my yellow, and then I go over it with a darker color. Now we're going to peel off our masking tape area. So as you can see, lines are crisp and it's going to look great and nice. So that area stayed nice and clean. And then we're going to keep working on everything else. So we're going to peel off our plastic wrap and you're going to see that. And then we're going to clean off our salt and you're going to see that it will leave that nice fun texture to our piece of paper. This is all for a little worksheet. Make sure you play around with these techniques in your next artwork.